Okay, so I think we are live and ready to go. I want to start by thanking everybody so much for taking the time today to sit down and go over and be with us for a little conversation about Recruiter Secrets Revealed. We have some fantastic panelists with us today that we are going to be leaning on and running some questions by to give everybody the best foot forward for the upcoming Virtual Career Expo that we have coming up here in around 6 days or some change. So with us, we have Chrissy Johnson with USAA. We have Sam Catron. Did I say that right, Sam?
It's Catron, but as long as it's not late for dinner, it's fine.
Amen, brother. All right. So then I got Sam with Ashley Furniture, and I have Jeannie Glasgow with Acima. So our goal today is we're going to run through some Q&A. We're going to turn it over to the audience to interact directly with you guys to see if there's anything we didn't cover that you guys would like for us to touch on. After that, we'll break real briefly. I'll kind of do a quick walkthrough on how to register for the event, the importance of making sure you have an updated resume. We'll talk more about that with the panelists. And then after that, we will bring the panelists back on and get you guys to ask us some questions through chat. And then we'll wrap everything up. So first and foremost, I want to thank Chrissy, Sam, and Jeannie for joining us today. Let's just go ahead and kick it off. I got some questions I want to kind of run by you guys and get your, get your 2 cents on. I'll kind of go back and forth with everybody, make sure that everybody kind of gets their time in the sun. But as we all know, many transitioning service members, may not be familiar with how the recruiting process works in corporate America. I know when I took my leave from the United States Marine Corps and, kind of went out into the civilian world, I, was kind of like a lost puppy, if you will. Didn't really know what I was going to do, how I could translate what I did in the Marine Corps to the civilian world. And so we just kind of want to make sure that those going through that right now, are a little bit more better prepared. So if the panelists are ready, I say we get this thing going. Everybody good?
Yes, sir. We're good.
All right. So let's start with Chrissy. So Chrissy, when it comes to the upcoming virtual career fair or, in-person fairs or whatever it may be, what are some of the roles of recruiters on your guys' side that would work these booths or at the in-person? Are they decision makers who are able to offer a candidate a job on the spot, or is it more of finding that right candidate and having those recruiters or whoever it may be kind of walk them through the hiring process?
That's a great question, Ryan. Thank you. So specifically for USAA, we have to follow federal hiring guidelines. So therefore, it has to be fair hiring practices. And those who attend virtual events, virtual is different than in person. In person is a little bit harder because if we take one resume, we have to take all the resumes because it has to be fair in hiring practices, right? Sure. So most of our attendees, it'll be my team and I, or we'll take a couple of recruiters with us. Sometimes the business goes with us, which is hiring managers looking for specific needs to fill. But those are that is your chance to shine as a candidate, regardless. It is your elevator speech. It is you making that first impression and that connection. Even if they don't take your resume, such as USAA, it is your way to extend even a virtual handshake and make that connection, because it's not always who you know, but what they may know. So when we show up at job fairs, we are highlighting and targeting our top hard to fill jobs, hot jobs, right? But those who attend are recruiters that are either in that space or around that space, or talent scouts typically. Talent scouts are just that. Those are those individuals that you want to seek out on LinkedIn and through social connections, because those are the persons that are looking for those purple squirrels that are going to handhold you through that process. Right. And their entire job is to source and to hunt talent. So that's typically who USAA takes to job fairs. I have seen other companies who, those are the hiring managers. They are making the hiring decision. So when you go to an event, prepare to have both. And I don't know how Jeannie and Sam do theirs, and I'll let them talk to their space. But so just be prepared to just have that elevator speech and to have your resume, because sometimes we like to look at them anyway, and that way we can guide you on the best practices. But they are highly valuable, and I recommend everybody attend any job fair that you have the opportunity to attend.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeannie, how about you?
Hi, my company is Akima, and we are a government contractor. So we really hire about 75% of military-centric kind of positions. So we are really looking for folks that are getting out of the military and that want to, continue their career field. Your job that you have done in the military really translates to a lot of things that we do as a government contractor. We look for you folks. If I were you and I'm coming to a job fair, research, the companies that are coming, see what kind of jobs that they have. And those are the jobs that you really want to focus on, where you want to go with your career. Our recruiters that come, we normally send quite a few, and they're, abreast of what we got available across all of our companies and all of our contracts. We have positions, within the CONUS and OCONUS, cleared and non-cleared space. So we can really talk your language, and the recruiters really try to, and we understand your language. But bring your resume and be able to, if it's a virtual career fair, be able to cut and paste little snippets out to give your recruiters that, really focus on the areas that you want to apply for with that particular company. So, have a couple of resumes that target different types of positions that you feel that you can fit into. But really, this is, like Chrissy said, your time to shine. Sell yourself.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you. So Sam, I want to come to you, but I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball, man. When it comes to Ashley Furniture, how often do you or your recruiters or your team, whatever it may be, look at resumes that are downloaded ahead of the GI Jobs Career Expos, right? Because just so everyone knows, and we'll, I want to reemphasize this later on about the importance of making sure your resume is up to date and uploaded in correlation with your profile that you create for the upcoming VCEs, because we release them to all the companies before and after the event. So, Sam, for you, man, what, how often do you guys kind of comb through those before and after the events?
Well, I lead the team right now of 5 recruiters. And as a group, we all log on and spend most of our time in the booths for the VCEs. However, what I will share is because Ashley Furniture has, we'll call it, 18 or 19 different sites across the U.S. We spend a lot of time looking at candidates that live in those areas. And that's something that is at least, it's not unique to us, but it is something that again, most of the hires that we make at Ashley Furniture are going to be within 30 miles of each and every facility. So I want to talk to at every VCE, I want to talk to every single person who lives within 30 miles of every facility. That can be the folks that live in the Dallas area, which is a huge market. That could be the folks that live in the Arcadia, Wisconsin market, which is a very small market. But I will tell you that each and every time, a couple of days before the VCEs, we're going in and sending chat requests. We're going in and sending, schedule requests of, hey, we're coming. We're all going to be here. We definitely want to talk to you. And I will tell you, Ashley Furniture as a whole, from a talent acquisition perspective, we believe in the hire for attitude and train for skill, which is one of the reasons why veterans work so well at Ashley, because we can teach you everything you need to know. I don't need you to be a distribution expert. I don't need you to be a manufacturing expert. I need you to be able to lead a team of individuals and help motivate them to hit production goals and to be able to do those things. And that's something that is somewhat unique to us, because we want to make sure that we're hiring good people. We want to make sure that we're hiring really strong leaders and folks that can bring the energy. And those are 3 things that most military veterans bring to the table automatically. So I am looking at resumes. We are checking the resumes out to see what you've done. There are plenty of individuals in the military who have distribution experience, or plenty that have inventory experience, plenty that have transportation experience. So we're definitely looking for those things. And I will tell you that if you have a resume that's uploaded on the VCE and you live within about a 30-mile radius of one of those sites, you can guarantee that we're either looking at your resume, we're downloading your resume, or we're doing both and we're sending you a chat request. So it's definitely something that is super important. I will make one very small mention. I did go to a career fair about 6 months ago, and the person I spoke with did not give me a resume, but gave me a business card with their contact information on it. And one of the things I thought was really unique about that was that person said, "Hey, I've done a ton of stuff in the military. I've been in the military for 25 years. If I were to fill up a resume with everything I've ever done, it'd be 9 pages long. But I'm the person that you need to hire," and handed me the business card. It was the most powerful thing I've seen in a long time. And to be totally honest with you, we're going to look at your resume and that's great, but I'm going to judge you way more on the conversations that we have, way more on the experiences that you can talk to rather than the words that you can write down on a sheet of paper. So a resume is great. It shows a perfect timeline for what you've done, but making sure that you get the contact information to the recruiter is paramount, way more than the resume. So two very distinct and unique points for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's very, very true, Sam, because I know, like, for me, and I'm going to pivot this into a conversation for you, Chrissy, here in a minute. But, you know, when I first got out of the military, right, I didn't really have a resume, right? I would just put Marine Corps 4 years, right? I mean, what I did and stuff, but, you know, outside of that, it was, you know, the one pager, right? It was pretty much that's what I did outside of my college and stuff. But when I got into the civilian world, I went through jobs. I went through my first 3 jobs were pretty quick, right? Within the first like 6 to 8 months. And it was more of, I mean, to be honest with you, it was more me than it probably was the organization, right? Like, it's like, what do you mean? I can go eat lunch whenever I want. Like, I don't have to be back by, like, it was, for me mentally, it was just a bit of a training wheel period for me to kind of find my way in the, you know, corporate world. But so my question for you, Chrissy, is, you know, what would you say to those individuals that's kind of 2-part, right? So either one, have some gaps on their resume, or like myself, their first couple of years in the civilian world, you know, we kind of bounced around. So our resume may be, you know, 2 pages creeping into 3, you know, whatever it may be. But, you know, because there's different things, right? Some people say, well, paraphrase and try to get it on 1 page. Some people say, you know, do whatever it is. But from the USAA standpoint, or just, you know, your personal standpoint as in the position you're in, what are some do's and don'ts when it comes to gaps and or, you know, short novels when it comes to resumes?
Right. That's a great question too, because there is no right answer, but there's definitely a wrong answer. And the wrong answer is not selling yourself, right? So how do you do that? To your point, I know Sam's shaking his head and smiling. So from a talent perspective, we get that. And what you have to do is you have to use this piece of paper, whether it be 1 page or 3 pages, with intent. It is your marketing tool. It's not to get you the job, it's to get you the interview. Then in the interview is where you sell your amazing skill set, your charming personality, you know, but you have to get there first. So how do you do that? Not USAA sanctioned. I like functional resumes, or even a hybrid, you know, chronological with functional, because it kind of gives that time frame, especially if you're applying for a job that's asking for 8 years of experience and you want to highlight that. You kind of need a chronological, but at the same time, what do you do with those gaps? These are great conversations to have with the military spouses, because we do have gaps. We move, we follow around our soldier, right? And we job hump. Well, it looks like we job hump, but we don't.
Right.
So how do you do that? Functional. You highlight those hard skill sets. Those skill sets, soft skill sets are great, but purposeful again. So it's things like using your critical thinking skills. To your point, are you going to put you're proficient in Microsoft Word on your resume? Does the requisition call for it, or are we going to assume that you know how to manage Word? So it's those types of things you have to walk through. And if you're applying for a project management role, it's those project management skills that you need to highlight quickly at the top.
Right.
So there is no right way or specific way. Same thing with a cover letter. If you're going to give me a cover letter, why? What's your intent? If you put in a cover letter, would really like to work for USAA, it'd be really great. Well, duh, that's why you're applying, right? So be intentful. Tell me why. Give me a little bit more about your background and who you are quickly, right? Make me want to put you in the I'm going to talk to you pile quickly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And so Jeannie, I want to kind of ask you the same one, especially on the defense contracting side. For more, I want to direct this question to you for more of how you translate, what you did in the military as it correlates to what Acoma does specifically, right? Because, you may need a TS clearance or, a poly, whatever it may be. But then kind of talking about, what you did in the military to receive that, kind of like, what do you guys at Acoma kind of look for when it comes to people kind of putting on paper what they did in the military? You're on mute.
Luckily, most of our recruiters and hiring managers are very knowledgeable on military skill sets, and that's what we're looking for. Most of our positions, I mean, you can walk out of the military and walk right into one of our jobs doing almost the exact same thing. I know that is a plus for a lot of folks. You're good at what you do. We look for prior military folks. We look for your leadership. We look for your dependability. We look for your knowledge that you've gained. We've looked for you being able to, fit yourself in any kind of position, whether it be, they move around every 2-3 years and you can just pick up your job and just do it. So, you're very versatile. So we really look for military folks for our type of positions. We look for your clearances. We know that you are dependable. So don't be afraid to say you're prior military, because this is a fabulous thing. I am retired military. And, when I first got out of the military, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I mean, absolutely no clue. So I like you, probably jumped around a little bit until I found my home with Acoma. And, I started off as a facility manager. We were a very small company back then, and just started working and then hiring for my contract. And I got good at it. And so then I started doing recruiting, and, here I am 18 years later as a senior director of recruiting. So you have, the sky's the limit. Pick kind of what you want to do, but that's just the beginning. All you need to do is get your foot in the door, and then you can see, okay, this is not for me, but that is. And, don't be afraid to go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sam, I got something for you real quick, and then we're going to break for the next segment. But throughout your time seeing military resumes, right, or people who are in the military or whatnot, what are some of, give me two, if you could, two big no-nos that you see specifically when it comes to military resumes? I know I was very phonetic, if you will, about what I did in the military, 0621, field radio operator, but so what are some things that that you've seen in your travels that you would say just don't do it?
So I'm definitely the outlier here because I'm a veteran. I'm also not a military spouse, so I'm speaking directly from experience here. Number one, first and foremost, the majority of individuals that you're going to speak with in talent acquisition, and again, this is a broad stroke statement, are not going to know about your military experience. They're going to know certain things. They're going to know certain pieces. Maybe they've learned that, hey, these types of people, they transition really well to these types of jobs. So they're looking for, those 2 or 3 little line digits. I will tell you from an acronym perspective, I don't know any of them. I'll just go ahead and be completely candid. I don't know any of them. And so when you're putting your resume together, you need to make sure that the person who is reading your resume can actually read for comprehension and isn't just reading and going, wow, that's a lot of numbers and letters there, and I don't know what any of that means, but I'll still call them anyways. So don't necessarily worry. You don't necessarily have to worry about, I got to put exactly the correct abbreviation, whatever that may be. You can, explain it to me like I'm 10 years old. If you were in a very specific branch or a very specific platoon that had a very unique skill set or a very unique job description, just write that. You don't have to write the acronyms because I'm not going to know them. I'm going to be Googling them. I'm going to try and figure them out on my own. And more than likely, I'm just going to say, you know what, I'll just call them and talk with them about it. So that's number one. You don't have to be too specific on your resume, because I just want to know what your timeline's been like. Have you done those things? Secondarily, when you're putting together a resume, um, understanding that people get transferred in the military a lot, and you get transferred often, and I addressed it here to Erica's question. But if you have a gap, or you have a place where you transfer from one to the other, and it looks like, hey, I was only here for 6 months, or maybe I was here for 1 year, it's totally acceptable to actually put a disclaimer or put a note of, hey, the reason why I was only here for 6 months was because I got transferred from one to the other. I won't know that until I speak with you. And so for the individuals that are out there that are very quickly scanning the resume and they see a gap and the gap's not there, I encourage people to address that immediately. You can put it on there. Hey, I was caretaker for a family member, or I was a stay-at-home parent, or maybe I got transferred and I had a really tough work schedule, and so I didn't put it on there. So leaving gaps completely, we'll call it unexplained, is probably more of a no-no than not. Because I'm trying to look and figure out, okay, where have you been in the last 5 years? We can talk about all the things that you've done, and you can clearly talk to those things, but I just need the timeline. I need to know, where have you been? What have you done? And can you explain it to me, a very lay civilian person?
Perfect. Yeah, well said. Because I know that's definitely an issue that I ran into, and I wanted to ask you, because to your point, there's probably more individuals like yourself that can't translate those acronyms versus someone like Jeannie or Christy, sorry, that have spent some time in that. So thank you for that.
Ryan, I will jump in really quickly.
Yeah.
I do know MOS. I know
there you go.
and I know where to go to find it. But I will tell you that if you're sending it to someone who's never had to look up an MOS before, just put the function. Just write what you've done. You can put the MOS in parentheses, but don't rely on a recruiter just to find that out on their own, because some of them are very broad. So I'll make that mention.
Fair enough, and I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, so right now we're just going to break real quick from the panel. And I'm going to share my screen and just kind of show everybody how to kind of go through the, let's see here, kind of go through the thing. Let's see, share screen, desktop. And it's not letting me. So, we will get back to that. It's not letting me share my screen. That's technology for you people. Just let you know we're live. This is live. So we will get that information out to everybody on how to properly go through and register for that. I do apologize for this as well. So with that, let's get back into it, shall we, guys? Everybody have a nice little break. Everybody good? Ready to get back into some more questions here? So when it comes to how to ace the interview, all right. Let's see. Let's go to Jeannie. So Jeannie, if a chat goes well in the VCE, right, and the applicant is offered an interview, in your opinion, what are some of the best questions a candidate has asked, I guess, in the past, through your travels, or I guess how they've come prepared, or, whatever it may be, that has made a really good impression, or, allowed them to stand out against, the whole talent pool?
Well, I could probably write a book on what not to do in an interview. But what impresses me and what impresses hiring managers is, when you go into an interview, know the company that you're interviewing with. Do a little research on them. Know what they do. Actually read the job advertisement or the job description that you are actually interviewing for. You would be surprised at how many people really don't read the job description. don't read the requirements of the job description.
Mhm.
And when they get into the interview, one of the mandatory requirements is, let's say I can stand on my head for 3 minutes. Well, the hiring manager will ask you, how do you stand on your head for 3 minutes? And they'll go, I don't know how. Well, you've already blown the interview right there. So know what you're interviewing for. Go in there very confident. It's okay if you go in there a little nervous at the beginning. Everyone is kind of nervous at the beginning. If it's a interviewer, they'll do a conversation with you just for, to calm you down. And be okay to make a little mistake. If they ask you something and you don't know, it's okay to say, I don't know. You don't have to know everything. But what you do know, sell yourself. Sell what you do know. You would be amazed at all the information and all the skills that you have learned in the military that really translates into civilian world. So be honest. And that's the biggest thing is, a interviewer can tell when you're genuine.
Perfect. Thank you. And I agree 100%. Chrissy, I know one of the things that I had issues with, or at least I think I did. I never really got, true feedback on this part of the interview, but the whole interview is you guys mainly running it, leading it, asking the questions, getting the responses you're looking for, whatever it may be. But then, so the person on the other end is, ready to regurgitate some answers or whatever it is. But what always threw me off in interviews is at the end when the recruiter goes, do you have any questions for me? and I go, and sometimes I'm sitting there, I'm like, I didn't know I was supposed to. What's your favorite color? And then there's times where it's like, oh, well, what are the benefits like? What is the work-life balance? What is the PTO? Like, do I get paid every 2 weeks? Like that type of stuff. But there's a lot of times where I ask that and I hang up the phone and I go, I really feel like they were opening a door for me and I did not walk through it. So in your opinion, at the end of the interview or whenever you guys do it, when you say, do you have any questions for me? What are you guys looking for there? Is it literally just that simple? Or is this kind of some, little, how do you think on your feet type deal?
It's literally that simple.
Okay.
However, you also have to, I keep using the same word. I'm just going to beat it till it's dead, but purposeful. You have to be purposeful. So, and you have to know your audience. So to Jeannie's point, you also have to know the job that you're applying to and be prepared to answer those questions, but then your audience. So typically your first interviews with the recruiter. That recruiter is going to make sure that you align to the role, and after their intake with the hiring manager, that you're the candidate that they want to present forward. For that question, you want to ask that recruiter type questions. Compensation. What does a day-to-day look like for this role?
Mhm.
Those types of questions to make sure that you're a fit, because you have to be a fit for this company too. You don't want to spend 40 hours a week, hopefully no more, with a company where you're miserable. So you got to make sure it's a fit for you as well. And then you typically, the second and following interviews after that is with your hiring manager. And it may not just be your hiring manager, it may be a team lead. So don't assume that everybody that you meet, to your point, you're like, what do? I don't know how I'm talking to you, is unimportant, because it could be somebody who has no title, but has a huge seat at the table and has an influence on that team dynamics. So you want to approach every single person that you talk to with curiosity and as an interview for you as well. And then that person, knowing that you've already had the recruiter interview, so now you move on to the hiring manager, those questions at the end kind of change. So then you ask, what type of big projects do you see this person in this role completing in the next 3 months? What would make this person in this role successful in your point of view for this role?
Mhm.
So you're going to be doing those questions to have the hiring manager open up a little bit more to you and try and make a connection, because it has to be connection for both parties.
Fair enough. Absolutely. Sam, my man, when it comes to Ashley Furniture and your guys' hiring process, right? What are kinds of questions that you typically ask in a first interview versus, a third, a fourth, or, however your process is set up? what would be the difference between a first interview versus a second or last interview?
Yeah, so we start just wholeheartedly with culture. And I can tell you that every single person, every hiring manager that I work with right now, I feel like I've kind of pushed them that way. But to be totally honest with you, the way that we hire at Ashley is you have to find the right person. And to Chrissy's point earlier, when you talked about making a connection with the person that you're interviewing with, not nearly enough people go to LinkedIn and look at the person that they're interviewing with. If you were to go to my LinkedIn right now, I have so much information on my LinkedIn about who I am, what I've done in the past, and all those things. And I can tell you that some of the best first interviews I've ever had are with people who said, "Hey, I saw on your LinkedIn that you played college baseball. What was that like? Was that really cool?" And my first initial thought was, "Oh my gosh, I get to talk about something that I'm super excited about." So that's that. I mean, when you kick off a call that way, or when you start to have that conversation, I need to know that this is a person that we can take out of the facility and they can connect with other people there. We're such a large company, and when you come in as a supervisor, at a minimum, you're leading 30 people. So that means you have to make a connection with each one of those 30 people, no matter where they come from, whether they're from the US, whether they grew up in the same place that you did, whether they've had a similar experience that you did. And so those kind of get to know you, build relationship quickly type skills, those are things that you almost, I mean, some people are obviously given those when they're born, but other folks have to work really hard at that. And so when I talk about, first interviews and second interviews going down towards the end, the first sets of interviews are almost exclusively culture for us at Ashley. We want to make sure that number one, you can fit in with the team. We want to make sure that number two, you're actually going to work hard when you come, because I will tell you, Ashley Furniture is not easy. Working in the distribution center, working in the manufacturing sites, those roles are not, sit in a chair and hang out for 40 hours a week. You're out in the facility. Some of those facilities don't have air conditioning. Some of those facilities, you're on your feet for 8 hours a day or 9 hours a day or 10 hours a day. We always talk about having dirty fingernails. It's something that our CEO, Todd Wanek, talks about all the time, is that I've seen people have a great interview, technically completely spot on, but they don't get past the first interview because they spend too much time talking about what they've done and not what they'd be willing to do, or not what they want to do, because those are things that I think are super important. If you're, 2 or 3 or 4 interviews down the line, you're talking to a director, you're talking to a senior director, that person's asking about technical ability. They're asking about what have you done in the past, talking through your experiences. But I can tell you that making a connection with the hiring manager or making a connection with the interviewer is almost as important as having the right experience, and being able to pick pieces out of someone's background, or pick pieces out of the company, or pick pieces out of, mutual connections that you all have, makes that interview and makes that conversation so much easier. Jenny talked about it earlier. I talk to a lot of people who are nervous. The best way to handle that is to tell someone up front, "Hey, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm a little bit nervous. This is one of my first interviews." For several people who have been in the military for 5 or 10 or 15 years, this may be their first interview. You may be the first person not in the military that they've interviewed with. And so being just open and honest and saying, "Hey, I'm a little bit nervous. This is my first interview. I hope this goes well." That breaks the ice almost immediately, because now I realize, okay, I need to be a little bit more of myself and a little bit less of a recruiter. And being able to pair up some of those connection pieces makes so much more sense. Like I said, hire for attitude and train for skill. If you can convince the person on the other end of the phone that you're going to be a good person and you're going to be a great employee for them, and you can learn whatever they teach you, that goes way beyond talking, technical specific pieces on call number one.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's fantastic, Sam. Thank you. Real quick, where'd you play ball at?
I played at a school called Ferrum College. It's a Division III school in Southwestern Virginia.
This is crazy. We're gonna get sidetracked, but I played at Methodist.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense now that you lived in Fayetteville for several years.
Vietnam, I sure did, man. Yep. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Yeah, we'll have to catch up.
Absolutely.
USA South, baby.
Yeah, man.
So let's go back over to Jeannie for a second. So big into cleared and I'm assuming making sure college degrees are there, whatever it may be. Does your company accept military education or training in lieu of a college degree, or as with a college degree?
Well, I know people hate this answer, but it depends. It depends on who our customer is.
Okay.
There are certain customers that they list their minimum requirements. Let's say it's with Department of State or whoever, and you have to have a degree for certain positions. But many of our positions will say, you know, a 4-year degree or equivalent experience. Most of our positions are looking for equivalent experience. And it doesn't necessarily mean specific experience for that particular job, but experience that you can do that job.
Absolutely. And then real quick too, since I have you, a question kind of popped up regarding security clearances. I
Mhm.
know that as companies, it's much cheaper to sponsor versus going through the process of having an employee get one. But if someone once held one, right, regardless of level, they once held it, it's now expired. And then, you know, one of your jobs says, you know, needs to have a active clearance, and they did, but it's expired. Does that automatically disqualify them?
Probably.
Okay.
There are some positions that will state must have or able to obtain. And if
Okay.
it's able to obtain, and it's really not the civilian company that sponsors your clearances. We don't do that. It's the government that
Right.
sponsors your clearance. So it's the agency. If they're willing to sponsor clearances, go for it.
Okay.
If you have had a clearance, typically your clearance will come through a little bit quicker. So we tend to want to push you guys through. But if not, you know, the only thing is able to obtain. And then a lot of positions you're able to come on with an interim clearance and then, you know, work until your full blown comes through.
Perfect. Thank you for that little one-off. I appreciate it.
And Ryan,
Yes.
if I might add to
may.
Jeannie's point on the civilian side as well, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter who you're applying to, but you have to meet the minimum requirements. You are telling the recruiter, I minimally meet the minimum requirements to apply to this role. And if you say no, you are then in essence saying, no, I don't minimally have the requirements to apply, so I applied anyway. And quite honestly, a recruiter will never see your application, ever.
Okay.
Most systems today kick you completely out. So you have to meet the minimums. And to Jeannie's point, she said it perfectly. Look for that or, that keyword. It's and or. You know, if it says you must have a bachelor's, period, you have to have a bachelor's to apply, as an example.
So I'm glad you brought that up. Let me kind of ask you a question to piggyback on that. So when a job seeker is viewing your company's job descriptions, right? What is the difference between, and I know it's terminology, but between preferred skills versus expected qualifications or required experience? You know, what, shed some light on kind of, you know, what's the difference between a preferred skill and, you know, a required experience or accepted qualification?
That's a great question. I keep saying that. You're asking all the good questions, right? That's why I'm on repeat.
Well, it's not
So
me. I'm a Marine. They wrote them for me. It's just a good thing I can read. That's all.
perfect.
Yeah.
So your minimum requirements are minimally, they're tied to usually compensation and legal to that requisition. You
Mhm.
have to meet these minimum requirements that are outlined for compensation, for legal, to say you can do this job. Preferreds are exactly that. They're those bonus nachos. The hiring manager saying, well, you have check, check, check. Now I really want my candidate, that purple squirrel, to have all of this stuff. If you don't meet any of the preferreds, but you meet all the minimums, don't take yourself out of the running. Still apply, you know, because you may be that purple squirrel that just didn't highlight or don't know how to transfer that language, those skill sets. But if you meet most of the preferreds and all those minimums, that role is probably perfect for you. Just tailor that resume. So that's the difference. That's what the hiring manager is looking for. Minimally, you have to have this, but I really prefer you to have this and this.
Right. Right. Sam, what, let's see, how can I phrase this? As you can tell, I'm going off the cuff now versus reading. So Sam, how would you know, go about saying, what is the best time, I guess, during the interview to discuss, how can I put this? I guess the correlation between, so for example, right, Sam, like you said, like, I don't know a lot of the military lingo or what, the jargon or the, you know what MOS is and stuff like that. But, so if you say to someone, okay, tell me what you did in the military, right? We can sit there and tell you about, our areas of operation and the different trainings we did and cold weather training, all this different type of stuff. But, how would you best say it is to talk about that to where when you're done talking, the recruiter's going, that's great. Like, what's the best way that they can, put that in layman's terms?
Yeah, so I always think about, team and then responsibility. So
Okay.
if you if you were in a role, first off, you have to kind of think about, in obviously the civilian world, you think about whether you're a team leader or whether you're an individual contributor. Both of those things are totally fine, and you can be either of those things. But you need to be able to know what your role is. Now, granted, in the military, you have ranks, you have very specific like levels that you can get to where you say, okay,
Mhm.
well, I know that if I was this, that means I led a team. I always start by saying, hey, tell me about the last thing that you did. Tell me about your primary responsibilities. So the perfect example for me would say, okay, I led a team of somewhere between 5 and 15. Those individuals were usually, E1s, or they were usually, fresh in the military, or maybe I led, a small group of very specialized, military members. Or you can say, hey, I, generally was an individual contributor. I worked as a part of a team. I reported to this particular type of person. And so, from that particular aspect, and again, because we talk a lot at Ashley Furniture about leadership, we talk a lot about things that you are just kind of given in the military. You generally know how to lead a group of people when you come out of the military. You've been in it for a couple of years, so being able to effectively communicate kind of what level of leadership that you were involved in. So that's number one. I always start with that because if someone says, "Yeah, I led a team of 10," then my first thought is, "Okay, I feel like I can generally trust this person to lead a small group." That check. That's number one. I can check that off the box. And then number two, when you think about roles and responsibilities, were you responsible for those other soldiers' health? Were you responsible for them as a person? Or did you have tasks that you were working towards? I know there are a lot of individuals that are actually in distribution in the military. I talk to a lot of them because it translates really well over to our distribution centers. And they say, hey, my platoon, we were responsible for this particular warehouse. The warehouse was generally this size, and we supplied every military installation within 100 miles of this particular place. What did you supply them with? You supplied them with, was it first aid supplies? Was it munitions? Was it uniforms? Was it whatever that may be? And so from a training perspective, like cold weather training, that's great. Hopefully you'll never have to use that when you're at Ashley Furniture, but that's a nice skill. So when you think about those things with transition, try and keep it in layman's terms and try and think about it as I was responsible for X being, number one, what you did. And then number two, I was responsible for this amount of people, or I was part of a team that was responsible for that amount of individuals. So that's kind of where I first start. Obviously everyone goes through marksmanship training and all of those things, and those are great. Hopefully you'll never have to use that as an Ashley Furniture. But when you think about your responsibilities and what your primary goal of every day or every week was, that's generally where I like to start.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. This next one, I'm going to start with Jeannie and then go to Chrissy with the same question. So start with you, Jeannie. When it comes to guard, reserve, those types of people, the weekend warriors, if you will, right? So, they know that, and employers know too, that there's going to come a time where they're going to be out of work for a week, or, they could, get deployed at the drop of a hat or whatever it may be. I do know too that has led to, some in the guard or reserve to not come out and say that they're in the guard or reserve and worry that could affect one thing or the other. I see Chrissy shaking her head saying that's ridiculous. That's absolutely not the case at all. But if you guys, just kind of wouldn't mind touching on, that is okay, and kind of how your culture internally allows for that to happen without them worrying about their job being there when they get back. Jeannie, you want to go first?
We are a military-friendly company.
Yeah, you are.
We welcome anyone that's in the reserves or the National Guard. And thank you for your service every day. Do not ever be afraid to list that you are a current member of the National Guard or the Reserve. And quite frankly, it's not legal to reject you just because you're in the National Guard or Reserve. So never be afraid to do that. Put it on your resume. I couldn't say it any other way. Just do it. Let us know that you are in the Reserves or National Guard. It will not count negatively towards you in any way, shape, or form.
Yep. And then Chrissy, for you, you're a military spouse, correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. So this is exactly for you.
Retired, old.
Once a military spouse, always a military spouse. So on the military spouse side of this too, because I do know that, I've seen through my travels and stuff that military spouses at times are reluctant to state that they are a military spouse, not for the deployment factor, but for the fact that,
Right.
their
Nobody's
significant
gonna-
other could get PCS at any time and they're gone. Right. So, what would you say specifically, to the military spouses out there about identifying and, just kind of not having that stigma or worry that it could disqualify them?
Oh my gosh, Ryan, I'm about to go on a tangent. You got me spun up with the question about weekend warriors. Please, anybody who's listening to me right now, you do not want to go work for a company that is not military friendly, period. Why would you put yourself through that? It is a talents market. You are marketable, you are valuable, and you can even go to hiringourheroes.com or Recruit Military or even GI Jobs and see military friendly companies. Apply to them. Go to them because they are not only military friendly, but they're military ready, which means, to Virginia's point or Gina's point, they're ready. So they know you're going to be activated, or they know, my teammate, he was activated for 3 months. He went to Austin. He should have gotten hazard pay, but he didn't, but he should have. But that's another story. Back to the spouses, same incident, same concept. Apply to those companies that are, you self-identify. You're not self-identifying to say, oh no, now I just put, a target on my back. No, you're self-identifying because probably within their internal system, you're in a bucket. You're in a bucket where you have raised your hand, just like a referral candidate, and said, I am a military spouse.
Yep.
Hire me, look at me, right?
Yep.
That's what you're doing. I remember, Ryan, back in the day, I'm gonna age myself. None of this stuff existed. And we were afraid to put military spouse. We hid that, you had to hide all these gaps, but not today. Not in today's world. It is the right thing to do. It is to take care of our community. And honestly, you guys do not want to go work for a company that is not going to respect you for what you've done as a service member and for supporting your spouse as they were activated. So.
Yep, absolutely.
I'll piggyback on that right now.
Yep.
If you have a place, you interview for a job, or you send your resume out there and you've self-identified, if they don't call you back, or you feel like you've somehow been, set aside because of that, that's not a place you want to work. It's not. And the places that value what military members bring to the workplace, we're hunting them. I'm literally going out to places and saying, I want to hire people who have this experience. I'm willing to look past requirements. I'm willing to look past things that I would really like a person to have because of the experiences that you have in the military. So if you ever go to a place, you interview, or you go to a place you feel like you got pushed aside based on you self-identify, that's not the place you want to be.
Nope. Ryan, we are totally taking this over from you.
No.
But Sam said this earlier, and culture fit. It has to be a fit. And if it's not aligned to your values, move on.
Yeah. No, amen. Amen. Absolutely. I got one more brief question, then we're going to jump into to the chat. So this one's I'm really interested to hear what you guys how you guys respond to this. And we're going to go across the gamut with all three of you for this response. So I know that one of the questions that back when I was interviewing, kind of always threw me for a loop, because I want to be honest, but how honest do I be? And the question is, why are you looking to move from your current position? Right. And that could come anywhere. I could be like, because everyone I work with, I just can't do it anymore. Right. Or it's, but and then you try to come out professionally. It's, better opportunity, growth, or whatever it is. But I just want to get your opinions on kind of what, the ideal response or kind of what you guys look for when you ask that question. And we'll start with Sam, and we'll go Sam, Chrissy, Jeannie.
Chrissy said this earlier. When you apply for a job, especially if you have to write a cover letter, you don't need to say, I want to work for this company because I love this and this. You want to work because you want a job. I have to pay the bills to put the roof over my head that I live in. And so, look, I'm not asking someone to go out and say, hey, I want this job because I want to exchange services for money. We all understand that. The one thing that I will say can be a yellow flag is if I say, hey, talk to me about why now. Why is now the right time for you to make a change? Or why Ashley? So you either have one of two buckets that you can use. If it's a why now thing, maybe it's, hey, I have family that lives in the area. I'd like to get back closer to family. Or, hey, I don't think I'm paid what I'm currently worth right now. And I'd like to find a job that's more commensurate with my skill level, if I'm using all of the fancy words. Or you can say, hey, I want to gain new skills that I don't have at my current job. As you think about those three things and kind of the reasons why people make a job change, focus on those things. Or if you are completely drawn to Ashley Furniture, you said, I've grown up my entire life wanting to be in the furniture industry. Or if you've always said, hey, I've always wanted to go out and drive a truck for a living. If that's what you want to do, tell the recruiter that's what you want to do. The one yellow flag that I get is when I say, hey, talk to me about why you're looking to make a change. And the very first thing that they say is something about, I hate my boss.
Yep.
Or
Yep.
I don't like the team that I'm working for.
Yep.
Or this team is gossipy, or whatever that may be. So when you think about that, you can appropriately and professionally say, hey, the workplace culture is a little bit, maybe it's off. Maybe I'm not looking for that. Maybe you can say, I'm looking for a workplace culture that understands the military, the life of a military member. Or you can say, hey, I'm looking for a place where I have trajectory. If you're looking for a place that's trajectory, I know you don't have trajectory where you are.
Right.
So when you think about that, use what you're looking for to covertly say what you may be going from. Because the last thing I want to do is place someone who is running from something, because I don't know if you're going to stay at Ashley for another month or 2 months before you run to something else. So if you can think about, okay, why am I leaving my current job right now? Or what am I looking for out of my new job? And use those two pieces of information to try and structure that call.
Perfect. Chrissy, what about you?
I mean, it appears I paid Sam to say everything I was going to say. So he said it all. It's perfect. Don't come out and say, oh, it's cutthroat over there. They're stabbing me in the back. My team sucks. You can't do things like that. You can wordsmith it though, spin it up a little bit, right? But to Sam's point, again, we keep going back to the culture fit, and it truly is what aligns with your values, right?
Yeah.
So, Ryan, could I go to another job and make more money? Probably. Why would I want to? My quality of life is amazing, and USA takes such great care of not only their membership, but their employees as well. It is a culture fit. Their values are aligned with my values. And it comes down to Sam's point. You just need to say, hey, and research your company before you apply too. Make sure that they have those alignments, and you can always tie it back to, oh, well, your mission statement says, oh yeah, look, you went on our website right before the interview. So those types of things, right? But Sam said it perfectly. I really have nothing to add.
Fair enough. Jeannie?
I don't have a lot to add, other than the biggest red flag is when you badmouth your last company boss, coworkers. That's a huge red flag, even if it's true. Otherwise, tell the truth. Why are you looking? If you're losing coverage, if you're in government contracting and your contract is ending, that's okay. Say it. If you're looking for a shorter commute, that's okay. Say it. So put a little honesty in there too. Like I said before, be genuine. Say why you want to work for us, why you are looking. So just don't be toxic. Talk, about, your last job, it was horrible. It was this, my boss was this, my job, don't say anything that's toxic or, detrimental to your other company, even though it may all be true. Don't say it.
Fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. All right, perfect. Well, I want to pull this one question because I think it's a good one. Sam, thank you so much for being on top of these. But the one that was asked was, so I've been out of the military for 11 years. Do those skills I've learned and claimed through all my military service seem obsolete since I've been out so long, or no? Chrissy, you want to take it?
Work is work. So, right, you have to tie it in. Now, again, it comes back to that, and I know Sam's going to touch on this because he shook his head. It's that gap. So how do you fill in the gaps and all of that information too? So you need to call forward those skill sets. So it might have been 10 years ago, but you need to talk to them and you need to sell them quickly on that top of that resume to say, hey, because you want the recruiter to say up here, I'm going to talk to this candidate. I'm going to talk to Ryan. You don't want them to go to the, okay, well, where's this information? Oh, it was 20 years ago. No, I want something more relevant. You don't want them to do that. You want them to see immediately that you have the skill set at the top, right? In that little box up there, or in your little objective. We already know what your objective is, but you get the point. And then they're going to talk to you, and then you can go into a little bit more detail. You've already got him.
Right. Yep.
I said this earlier, and I was talking about the candidate who gave me the business card. And the reason why I bring that up is that that person knew, and someone had coached them, which whoever that person was great. That person had coached them and said, you don't have to submit the same resume to every job. And one of the things I tell people all the time is if for some reason you go to a job, you see a posting, and you say, okay, I want this job. I want to apply for this job. Take the posting, look at the words, look at the pieces that they want this person to do, and put that right on your resume. If you've done it, don't lie on the resume. But there is no reason why you should put together a resume that is so generic that you have everything that you've ever done. And I will tell people, I have 3 very distinct careers. I was a college baseball coach for the first 7 years. I worked in education and used to be a teacher and worked in education for several years in between coaching and here. And I have a recruiting career. I wouldn't dare put together the same resume to try and get all 3 jobs. I have a coaching resume that shows all of my athletic experience. It is so thick. Some of it may be embellished, but it's so thick. Okay. I have an educational resume. The educational resume talks about teaching. It talks about all the things that I did in teaching. And my recruiting resume, it looks specifically at what I've done in the last 5 to 6 years of my career. I add some of those things at the bottom, and I may add like, hey, I've also done this, 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 and this, this. But what I can tell you is I would not put the same resume together for all 3 of those careers. So you shouldn't be putting together the same resume for each one of those things. It's great for you to build a timeline. It's great for you to put that together. But again, you don't have to find like 35 different resumes, but you should be tweaking and changing your resume for each of the jobs that you apply if they are different. Because as Chrissy said, the recruiter's going to look at the top and they're going to look at, okay, who is this person? What are they doing? And why do they want to apply for this job? And if the first 3 or 4 bullets are not word for word from the job description, but if they are pieces of the posting, it makes so much sense to say, oh, this person's done this. This person's done this. I'm absolutely going to call them. So if you've done it 10 years in the past, 15 years in the past, if it's on the resume and you slide it up to the top because it's important, perfect.
Right on. Perfect. Well, I believe that we have run up on our time. I want to thank everybody so much for taking the time out to stop by with us today. And, Chrissy, Sam, and Jeannie, we really, really appreciate you guys and everything you do personally and everything that your company does for the military spouse communities. We really do appreciate it. I do believe we'll see all of you on the Virtual Career Expo coming up here. So again, to our audience, please register. Make sure you have a resume that's up to date to what the panelists have said. If you got a couple rounds in the gun, if you will, when it comes to different types of resumes, as you're looking at the different companies that are there, That's probably fantastic as well. But as always, I wish everybody the absolute best of luck in the Virtual Career Expo. Thank you all for your service. And I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their week. Thank you guys so much and take care. Bye, everyone.